that number, that 3, that 4, that 5, that 6, depending on which earthquake we're talking about. This one was a magnitude 4.1. So in a lot of people's minds, that would be a pretty noticeable earthquake to feel around here. But the other thing is you always want to look at the depth as well when you kind of investigate where could this be felt, how far. And when we see a depth of 7 miles, that's a deep earthquake. That means
and what does that mean?
7 miles
deep, so that means
below
that
the surface.
Fewer people would feel it.
Correct.
Okay.
You would typically think that people closest to the epicenter would feel that. When you start seeing depths on earthquakes that are more in the 3-mile mark, the 2-mile mark in depth, that is when they're closer to the surface, and that can be felt across a broader area. So if this 4.1 magnitude quake, say, happened at a depth of 3 miles, meaning it was a bit more shallow, more people would have likely felt not only shaking, but stronger shaking close to the epicenter. And we can actually just really quickly pull up from the USGS. What you're looking at is a map of people reporting to the USGS where they felt it and what it felt like to them. They can describe it as weak, moderate, strong, up to violent. And you can see for the most part, the shading on your screen is either weak or light, and that's what we would expect to feel from this type of earthquake when it comes to the magnitude and the depth. But we would also anticipate that the most people who would feel this would be closest to the epicenter of that earthquake. And that's exactly what we're seeing. You know, folks in Brentwood, Antioch, Pittsburgh, Martinez, Concord, Walnut Creek, Danville, they're closer to that epicenter and they would feel it the most. And you're probably asking yourself, well, you look across, the Delta into Solano County, we're not seeing that many reports. It could just be an area that's not as populated with people, and not as many people are there to feel these quakes, and that's why you're seeing a lot more of the reports in the East Bay, where it's a very populated area.
And let me pull up some of the alerts that, the one alert that somebody might have received this morning. We took a screen grab of this, of course, and this is what you got, and it was that loud beeping noise too, right? It says earthquake detected, drop cover, hold on, protect yourself, and that from the USGS ShakeAlert, which is great. That means it's working. We're getting those alerts so we can prepare. But again, as you mentioned.
And that is something you would want to get if you had a magnitude quake that was over 4.
Right.
Because that can do some damage. That can cause some problems. We have this handy dandy scale when it comes to our magnitudes. And once you start getting into 4, that's when you have noticeable shaking. We get about 10,000 of those per year around the globe. So to say that's common is not an incorrect statement, but once we get into the 4s, they are felt over a broader area. But again, you have to also look at the depth of the earthquake as well. If we go back, I think the one that people remember most in recent history would be the 2014 Napa quake. That was a magnitude 6, and that was, of course, felt across a huge area. But it's not that common that we'll see, a 4.
And
locally,
it's, I don't know if you want to call it ironic or what, but yesterday was, the anniversary of Loma Prieta, that 1989 earthquake that really did do a lot of damage. I believe 64 people died. The part of the Bay Bridge collapsed, and that was during a World Series game. A lot of people remember that, and this is just happening the day after, but it seems like as of right now, this is a much smaller situation.
And imagine if we had, the technology we had now back then. Imagine if more people got
the alert,
were able to get the alert because of a Napa or a Loma Prieta. The technology is there to help us. And I know people may think, oh, it's only a few seconds, but those, 2, 3, 4 seconds can make a huge difference if you're able to, drop cover and hold on, do as you're instructed. That can really help and save a lot of people. But this is what we're looking at this morning. I know, I feel like more people got anxious from the alert than, say, the earthquake itself. I know I got, a lot of text messages from friends and family asking, did it already happen? Did you feel it? But that's what the ShakeAlert is meant to do.
And we're getting updates at our assignment desk right now, details and what we're hearing from people. And this is just an example. Lyra's Supermarket in Rio Vista, which is close to where this happened. The person looks like says that bottles fell off the shelf, and they're sending us pictures, but that's as much damage, I guess, that we've heard. Somebody else telling us washing dishes at a coffee shop felt the sink shaking and thought it was the water pressure, but then realized it was an earthquake. So we're hearing stories like that. And I do want to let people know, because this will impact a lot more folks, BART is running trains at a slower speed right now, so you can expect delays of up to 20 minutes. And Drew, you can speak on this. They slow them down just to...
They just want to inspect the tracks.
To inspect the tracks.
Make sure nothing moved that wasn't supposed to. They do this every time there is an earthquake. They'll slow order. I would assume, they're not going to find anything wrong with their tracks with this size magnitude and where it was located and what was felt from people. But yeah, that's what they do every time there's an earthquake. And the last time we had an earthquake that was a higher magnitude was about a year ago. We had a magnitude 5.1 outside of Alum Rock, and it was almost a year ago to the day. That happened on the 25th of October last year. So it has been quite some time since we felt that much shaking. Just to give you an idea of how many reports, with that 5.1 last year, there was about 25,000 people who reported into the USGS, which is a huge number. With this quake, there were significantly less reports, meaning fewer people felt this one.
And I think I could pull that up, right, on the USGS website here. Let me pull that source up so folks can
and then
see
if you click
what we're looking
Did you feel it? And then if you scroll down, you can look at all of the reports. Sometimes it'll take them a second to get the exact number, but we can also go into the overview. So if you see right here on the right hand side of your screen, felt report tell us, that number is only 36. Compared to the 25,000 we had last year with the magnitude 5.1. So certainly some people felt it. I think a lot of people may have stopped for a second, maybe thought they felt something and then moved on with their life. Maybe it was their laundry. You have that sense sometimes. You're like, oh, was that my washer or my dryer? But certainly for folks closest to the epicenter near Rio Vista, and certainly for parts of the East Bay, that is where they felt it the most. So folks from Antioch, Pittsburgh, Bay Point.
Yeah, Concord, Orinda, Danville, Martinez. So if you are there and you're watching us right now, you probably felt it. But again, it's a 4.1 earthquake that happened just outside of Rio Vista. And Drew, once again, you said it's 7 miles deep, and that means that it's deeper than an earthquake that you might feel more.
So imagine if you took the entire span of the Bay Bridge, the eastern and the western, from let's say like the Bay Bridge Toll Plaza all the way into the city. That's about 5 miles. So add 2 more miles onto that and then go flip it and put it vertically into the ground. That's a pretty deep earthquake to feel. For reference, the one that was felt, the magnitude 5.1, was felt around a depth of 4 miles. So shallow, stronger, and that's why a lot more people felt it. But nonetheless, if you're in the region, you definitely felt a little shaking. Weak is what a lot of people described it as.
Weak. Okay, well that's good. And again, I continue to check with our assignment desk as we speak here, trying to multitask. And at this point, we haven't heard of any serious damage, no injuries. We're going to continue to follow up on this, but people just saying where they felt it, Stockton, Modesto, San Leandro, Hayward, and just people telling us where they were and just experiencing that light shaking. And as far as damage goes, the most that we've heard so far is that there were some bottles that fell at a liquor store in Ileton, which makes sense.
Yeah, you would think, because that is pretty much where the epicenter was. So if something was on a shelf near there, reasonable to suggest that it would fall.
All right, well, we're going to continue to cover this for you throughout the day. If we hear of any serious damage, any injuries, any more information, we, of course, will break back into our live stream here. But we wanted to break in for any of you that got that alert on your phone, that if you were alarmed and wanted to know more information, we wanted to bring it to you here on our live stream so you are informed. We are going to send it back to regular programming for now. We appreciate you watching. Drew, you're going to be back on in about 40 minutes on midday
at 11,
giving us an update on this.
Correct.
Okay, and everything else weather we need to know, which is the heat, of course.
Yeah, we'll have everything. If it's not earthquakes, we're talking about a warm up coming our way.
All right, so thank you for watching, and we'll see you back here later today.